game dice. So there we go. Let's open this bad boy up. I've got some scissors here, and I'll do my best to show all these on camera in a moment here. So let's just open this bad boy up. What's up, Milk? How's it going? Good to see you, Milk. And let me open up this box here. I was actually surprised when I got it about how cheap it was, because I saw it for about £20 over in the UK, and it's $20 here. Which means it's something like £14 in the UK. So I saved a fair amount having it over in the US.
Yeah.
Interesting. So that was cool. So I've just opened up the box here, and inside, this is what I see. Let me bring up my camera here so I can see what I'm showing you guys. So I'm seeing this right now. I've got, let's see, I've got some dice, some nice blue dice. Ooh, blue dice. We've got the Lost Mine of Fandelver. Nice little booklet here that we have, it seems like. We've got our starter set rule book. Huzzah. Very nice indeed. I'll have a flick through that in a moment. And we do have our character sheets. Let's see if I show those. And these are actually quite nice cards that are on. You can't see them. You can't feel them, but I can. And they are nice cards.
Yeah.
What else have we got in here? We got some encounter stuff like that, some more encouraging to play, and just another box down the bottom to fill it out a bit. Okay, nice. Ardvitar says, just finished Lost Mine of Friends, pretty fun campaign. Okay, it's cool. I was thinking of buying my local game code. Oh, no, Logan, have you played the Lost Mine of Fandelver?
I have actually. I've played and ran it.
What did you think of it for like a beginner's game?
So I actually think it's a really well written adventure for beginners. There's a lot of things in it that sort of introduce different concepts, especially if you've never played role-playing games before.
Right, yeah.
I feel like. And they just present you with a lot of things you can do, and like it doesn't matter if you...
A generous bestowal.
No Future UK has just donated £5. Thank you for the donation.
Wow, that's a good one. Thanks so much to No Future UK donates £5. Didn't say anything, but thanks so much, my friend. I appreciate that very much. That's very kind of you, dude. For you guys who don't know, I do this for a full-time job, so I do like appreciate whenever you guys send money. It doesn't have to pay the rent. It helps me just go and do fun things and buy boxes like this. So that's awesome, man. Thank you very much for that. And let me give you that gold for you, dude. So carry on, Logan. Sorry.
Yeah. So there's just plenty of storyline. You will get to level 4 or 5, depending on how much of it you do and the size of the party. Yeah, it's just a really cool story as well.
And what kind of prep-wise did you kind of go into this with? Obviously, you're a fairly experienced DM, but was this your first delve into 5th edition, or had you played previous games before this one?
So if I had a brief introduction to playing 5th edition with another, like a home-written adventure that one of my friends had put together. But Lost Mines of Fandelver was my first, like, what I would say major player experience with 5th edition. And it's one of the first, if not the first, 5th edition modules that I've run as a DM.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. So I think a lot of the people who might be watching today are in a similar position. And thanks so much to Melius NA for falling. Welcome to the adventure, Melius. You're a gentle Melius and a scholar from North America. Congratulations. I'm in the south right now, and it's very hot right here. But good to see you, and thanks for joining along on our road to 4,000 here. Okay, so I've got this box here. I'm just going to have a look. And in fact, we have a PDF which we can show you guys on the screen to see what I'm reading through and what we're looking through together here. So Logan, I sent that on the Skypes, and you should be able to kind of window cap, and you could bring it over where it says like Wild Magic Sale and the background stuff there, and we can have a look through together with those guys in chat.
Sure.
And as you guys are reading through this with us, we're going to be helping some ideas for you to kind of prep games. We'll be reading through it, giving a quick kind of analysis of what we think about it, I suppose, and some ideas for when you're running your own game. So if you're at home and you're thinking of DMing at some point, grab up a notepad or a notepad document and start making a few notes maybe about some ways that you can do this, because this is going to be live as well, so you can also ask questions throughout. So if you have a question about a certain thing which is on screen or which we talk about, then feel free to ask about it, and we'll do our best to clarify anything. We're going to take this as slowly as possible, and try and keep this nice and easy for anyone who is new to the game to experience and explain. Think you'd rather see publishable mini campaigns rather than gigantic super ones that they have now and again? I guess that's what the DM's Guild is for. I guess so, yeah. They're releasing on September 6th. I have it somewhere in the document. Say the one about Giants. The latest Giants expansion is coming out September 6th, which is kind of exciting. And then November time, they're releasing a new monster manual, which also includes playable monster races, which is sweet. Mini campaigns that connect together would be cool. Yeah, that would be cool. Are you new here, by the way, Avatar? Because I don't remember, I don't recognize the name, but it's good to see you, man. So let me know when it comes up. There we go. We can see
it's most of the way.
All right, certainly. Awesome. So we've got the introduction here. Yeah, we've got new races. I saw it's got new playable races like goblins and orcs and stuff in that new one.
Yeah, full orcs instead of half.
Yeah. So I think there's 3 which is said in that one, which I was talking to someone about the other day, and they were telling me that was coming out November 15th, I think. So he's actually got a fair amount of time until any content comes out. Thanks so much to Avatar for following our name, my friend. Welcome to the adventure. You are a gentle Avatar, and Scholar, thanks for joining us today, man, and putting us on that road to 4,000, one step closer, dancing Will. So let's stop our chatter about what to see, and we'll get into that. However, if you do want to see, I will say, if you do want to see homebrew stuff, if you do like the idea of new races and new classes, then tomorrow at 1 p.m. EDT, which is 6 p.m. if you're over in the UK, we're starting a new show. And this is the new show that we were talking about for a little while ago on another Dungeon Master Workshop, which is going to be called Homebrew and Review. And it's going to be with myself and a guy called Aaron from Tabletop Twitch. And we're going to be brewing up our own classes, our own races, our own monsters, and everything like that. So if you have a custom class that you want to see, at the end of tonight's session, I'm going to ask you guys for a bunch of ideas, and you can throw in your ideas to us, and we'll try and make some tomorrow. So 1 p.m. EDT, Homebrew and Review, new show coming at you, and we'll be making some new stuff. When's the Monster Manual coming out? I believe it's November 15th. I have to take that on my calendar because I wrote it down the other day. All right, so we'll start looking into Lost Mine and Fandelver, opening up this D&D starter set here. We'll see what we need to begin playing, I suppose. So reads adventure for 4 to 5 characters of the 1st level. During the course of the adventure, you'll advance all the way to 5th level. It's set in the Sword Coast region of Forgotten Realms. This is of course, the region which they're going with. They're setting on pretty hard in 5th edition. If you're unfamiliar with Sword Coast, and you don't need to worry because there's everything in here that you need to know about the Sword Coast. I won't go over the 2 simple things like the rules to play by. We can do that in a Q&A about how to actually play the game if you want. Find Master New Race. Yeah, I love looking at homebrew stuff pretty hard though, because a lot of stuff is either overpowered or feels underpowered compared to stuff like this. The balance is certainly a very tricky thing to do, and I think for me and Aaron on tomorrow's show, that's going to be our biggest task, is trying to module maybe. We're trying to get that balance right, essentially.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Because if you ever look on like the D&D 5e wiki, there's a lot of stuff on there which is very, very bad. And so we're going to be attempting to publish some good content because we're both pretty experienced DMs in 5th edition, so we have a fair idea of some homebrewing stuff. But let's get into this. So we've got a bit of background that 500 years ago, clans of dwarves and gnomes made an agreement known as Fandelver's Pact, which would share a rich mine and a wondrous cave known as Wave Echo Cave. So you've got a bunch of background stuff. What I like that they've done here on first inspection is this overview. They've made it really nice and simple for us, which I wish they would do with later books as well.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Logan.
I was just agreeing with your point there. It's very well laid out. It's simple to follow. It's got extra useful information. It's got nice background about the adventure and the setting.
Yeah. This PDF here. Yeah, what I like that they did is that overview part, just down a couple pages here, where they basically have told you what each chapter represents. And I wish that was something that they'd done with like Curse of Strahd and Out of the Abyss and stuff, because it really helps you as a DM, and certainly as a new DM that they're aiming towards, as figuring out what happens when. And that is probably the biggest task for you as a new DM is to figure out what happens in this overall story that you're basically trying to read through, right? And so it's like you kind of have to read the book and then memorize what happens. But sometimes you forget what happens next. So it's nice to have a little overview as to the stuff here. Good night, ARP chat. I'd like to see the Summoner class in Pathfinder Homebrew in 5e. Maybe it's a Druid archetype of 3rd level. That sounds cool, my ARP chat. I'll make a note of that for you here. I'll write down Summoner class, and I'll get some more on later. Okay, so from 3.5, perfect. All right, so let's continue delving on into here. Like I said, guys, feel free to ask questions throughout. We'll do our best to get to all of them. So, Goblin Arrows is how it begins. Of course, it begins the players escorting a wagon full of supplies to Fandalin. The journey takes them south along the high road to the Tribor Trail. Sounds cool. Which heads east as shown on the overland map. When they're half a day's march from Fandalin, they run into trouble with goblin raiders from the Cragmore tribe. So immediately we have the initial conflict for players. And I predict here an initial encounter. Indeed, it looks like we have one coming up here. So we have the kind of basic text, which is telling you about the quest that you're on. Gundren and Roxy asking to bring a wagon load of provisions to Fandalin, and then they get ambushed upon the way. That seems pretty good. He's gone well first. I think this ambush here, right here. So let's have a look. So one interesting thing, which you're thinking of as a new DM, which is first encounter is super hard to get surprised. Apparently, let's have a look here. So let's analyze this. So 4 goblins are hiding in the woods, 2 on each side of the road. They wait until someone approaches the bodies and then attack. So there are looted bodies nearby. So review the goblin stat block and Appendix B. Since the goblins are hiding, you need to know their stealth skill check, which is a +4. We'll see what else is here. So how many goblins are there actually?
There are 4.
So 4 of them hiding there. We've got a party of 4. If they're surprised the goblins get all around, they've got a +6 less stealth modifier against the party's passive perception, which is probably looking at something between the 10 and 13 area, I guess, at level 1.
Usually, yeah.
So they're probably going to get a good stealth roll, probably. If they succeed, of course, they get the surprise round, and then they go again. So yeah, it's very possible that could be quite a difficult fight for the party. Because let's have a look at their stat block in Appendix B. I'll just whip this up here somewhere, and I'll read it out to you guys. Because it's probably quite good. Because goblins, like Rem's saying in chat there, are actually not all that weak. They can do a fair amount of damage with a bow. I mean, even like something like kobolds can do quite a lot of damage when you let them. So yeah, they can do a total of like a +4 to hit. They can do a total of 8 damage per roll. So that's enough to take out a party member. 8 damage could take you down. So yeah, I can see how the surprise round could be a little bit tough for you there. Let's see. Is there solo modules to play by yourself? I get that question a fair amount actually about these solo modules. But yeah, a cloth wearer is usually you could be down on 8 damage, so it's possible. That could be quite a tough fight, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, I suppose. But let's see here. Solo modules. So
actually, Beast Runner. The lowest hit die now is a D6. Whether you're a wizard or like. Rogues have a D8 now. Actually, most of the classes do.
Yeah. So yeah, it's possible that you could go down with some 8 damage. Some players around 9 or 10 health at level 1.
And that's one of the. I really like this first encounter here. Especially like new players, they may not be expecting anything to happen. We're going where we're supposed to go. People who have never played RPGs, I've actually had people just sort of march along and not even think about, do I need to be checking for this or this or this or, and so it can definitely catch parties or a couple of players at least by surprise.
I think so too.
So it gets them right into the maybe there's more going on than I can plainly see.
Right, yeah. I don't mind the fact that a first encounter could be a little difficult. On principle, I think that could be a good thing. because like I'm saying, it says newbies don't fuck around because this game will murder you.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a fair comment. I mean, Bahamut wasn't expecting to see the buff to Wizard Sorcerer's help. Yeah, I mean, the thing with Fifth is they have made it a little bit more beginner friendly, I suppose. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about getting away from just analyzing the book itself. Let's talk about what you might need as a new dungeon master. So we've had a look through the book. We've had a kind of scour of both the rules, assuming you've got like a fairly basic understanding. We've got some free starter rules you can find online, and you've got this new starter set, and you've got this new starter set rule book with 32 pages of some simple rules for you to play. So Logan, what is usually your first step where maybe as a new dungeon master, I'll let you either give to a new DM or maybe let you just do yourself when you read, or even when you read Lost Mine of Fandel? What's the first thing that you tend to do? Do you read through the whole book first of all? Do you just read the first chapter? What's the sort of process for you as a DM, I guess?
Okay, so when I do prep work for sessions, I tend to just try and read what I expect to go through for that session.
Right.
But oftentimes I don't, because things going on in life and whatnot, sometimes I'm honestly too busy to have more than maybe 5 minutes to read through things sometimes. So sometimes it's a little more kind of like today was, just sort of by the seat of our pants kind of deal. But so I try and, in that case, I try and read ahead as I'm listening to what the party's telling me they want to do.
Right.
And I just kind of stay try and stay one or two steps ahead of them, so I know what's coming.
Definitely.
But yeah, sometimes if you guys ever watch me, or Will might have seen too, sometimes I'll get surprised by what I see, and I'm like, oh man, that's really cool. And it's like, yeah, I usually try and not say anything to not give anything away, but you might see my reaction on stream or something.
So Zig says he'd read the whole book. Okay, yeah. I think certainly. So the main thing, if you're a new DM, what I've noticed is a lot of people. It's just like the confidence thing, right? So a lot of people either don't want to start, or they're a bit hesitant to begin a game. Because they are a little bit nervous that they're going to mess it up somehow, right? They're going to screw up being a DM. It's a scary thing to do, going in front of 4 or 5 of your friends and saying, "Look, I'm going to try and run this game, right? This game with hundreds of pages of rules. I'm going to attempt to learn it." And it can be there can be the feeling where you feel like you have to read every page, right? You have to go into detail on every single page. You guys know Logan. He's over at From the Hollow. It should work. If not, just link it. Yeah, you go. You find him over there all the time, and Logan's always streaming on 24 hours stuff with us, and every Sunday with us now. But yeah, I think one thing that I try and get away from is, or I'd encourage you to do as a new DM, is to not fascinate over the detail, the minute kind of reading every rule, reading every kind of section of the stuff. I think what I would encourage you to do is get to a space where you're comfortable. And once you're comfortable running the first session or two, maybe you plan for 2 sessions. I think it's a good idea that you don't necessarily have to read every single page. You don't necessarily have to read every single rule. If that's something that you want to do and that's what makes you feel comfortable, then certainly go ahead and do that. But I think if it's stopping you from moving on and it's stopping you from actually getting into a game, then I think that's a kind of a beginner's trap or a pitfall that a lot of people fall into because they're not confident enough. I think you and me both, Logan, can tell everyone that you don't actually need to do it. Like it's one of the big kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's not a truth that you need to. One of the guys in chat will give me the word that you have to read every single rule and prep loads of stuff. Sure, when you're beginning, you want to prep a lot more than when you've been playing for a long time. That's definitely true. But if you have to throw something together, then rely upon your improvisational skills to do that. What would you say about that, Luke?
No, yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, if you're gonna if you're gonna sit there and worry about knowing every single thing about the game before you
Yeah.
try and run a session and know everything about the module or one you're working on, even have every
Honestly,
little
yes.
detail ironed out, it's never gonna happen. That's plain and simple. You will spend way too much time trying to just know everything about the game and the module, and you just kind of have to at one point just kind of dive in. And that's how I started. I was like, okay, this is something I'm going to do because you know what, it seems fun to be a DM. And sometimes the DMs who DM all the time, they want to play, but they'll run stuff so that way people can play because no one else is running things. So
yeah, and like Milk says, knowing everything doesn't doesn't always sound fun. What's that for? I didn't see about me. Like surprises. I did read through just to note my NPC motivations that steer in the right direction if you can scrub other details. That's the point, yeah. So on that note of not reading for everything, then summarizing things is a good idea. So like, big bad evil guy does this at this time. The goblins go to X camp on this day. That sort of thing. The overarching stuff is better to get down, I think, than the kind of minute details of there are 24 pieces of gold on this goblin here. There are 8 pieces of gold on this goblin here, and stuff like that.
Exactly.
You can get bogged down in these details because there is so much detail in this game that you can forget to just kind of think of the overall picture a little bit more, which is an important thing to do. I think certainly reading the rules and knowing, having a solid grasp on the rules is definitely important. Nice dungeon, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think once you have that down, that's a good idea. What I tend to do is I go through and I make some overall notes and stuff I'm doing, and then I prep more intensely for the first session, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another thing which we talk about, and as I'm looking at this Lost Mine stuff here, just kind of having a glance through, looking at this map which they have here, it's helpful to have a map sometimes. Of course, the Lost Mines comes with a nice handy map for you, but if you're making your own game, it's sometimes handy just to have that map either in your mind or just a very rough sketch of where things are in relation to one another. Because is it a 10-day walk to the next town, or is it literally the next night they're going to be there? Those sort of things are useful to know, and they're kind of more big picture stuff as well. What else? I think reading sometimes, reading like the last chapter can be good. And it's obviously going to be a bit of a spoiler, but you as the dungeon master, you know all the spoilers anyway, right? So
that's part of the fun of being a DM for me, is knowing what's coming. And
exactly.
to sort of touch back earlier about like trying to read and prepare for everything all up front, the way I look at the rules to some extent, because there's some very specific rules that hardly ever come up. So as far as the rules go, definitely like the basic rules are good to know before you get started. And aside from that, if you really have to, you can always look it up, or you can just sort of go with your gut feeling. I mean, as a dungeon master, you are, a neutral party. You're not for the players or against them. You are simply, I view it as like narrating the story, and the module is sort of just like an outline, right? Because nobody can plan exactly what people are gonna do.
That's it, and that touches on another point that I see a lot of new DMs falling into this kind of mindset, wherein you think that because the story has been written this way, you have to follow that story, right? And because Watsy printed this book, you have to follow what it says in this book. Rule number 1: throw away the book, because it's great for that outline, like Logan is saying. But when it comes to predicting what your players and what your party are going to do, you can't really tell. You can give them all the motivations in the world to go to a certain place, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to do what you want them to do, or what you prep to do. And so there's going to be a million times throughout your D&D career where they're going to go off the beaten track, and you're going to have to come up with something. And that's like where the kind of that idea of that term that you might have heard of, railroading, right? So railroading is basically putting the party in one direction and not letting them go anywhere else. And that's not what you want to do. You want give them strong reasons to go in the direction that you want them to go in, but also leave them open to the ideas of going to other places as well, right? So, maybe whilst they're going to Fandalen, they want to go off the track and explore the mountains. And then you're like, oh, I have nothing about the mountains. I'll give this to you, Logan. So as a DM, and I'm the party, and we say we want to go off to the mountains, we haven't prepped anything for really.
Right.
So would you just say there's nothing in the mountains when we go there, or would you think of something that was there? What's the first thing off the top of your head which comes into your mind when I say, I want to go into the big dark mountain?
You've heard rumors lately of a dragon in the mountains.
I definitely want to go there now. So yeah, I mean, it's stuff like that. And the other thing which which is a good example of as well is, you don't even sometimes have to make up stuff on the spot. Like I just put Logan on the spot. Sorry, but
no, that's fine.
There's other things that you can do. So for instance, maybe I've read chapter 3, which is, let me see what a chapter is. I have no idea, but maybe it's like the goblin cave chapter, or maybe it's the dragon cave chapter. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the place that you think it was going to be, right? So what I would say is you can just move stuff around sometimes, and the players aren't going to know anything about it.
Absolutely. So, you're the only one looking at this module. They don't know what's in there, especially if it's one you wrote yourself. I mean, then unless you've given it to other people, nobody else knows what's supposed to happen when. And it's just sort of it's just sort of a guideline. That nobody wrote this expecting you to do it word for word, because no two players are going to do the same thing at the same point in time necessarily.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their own ideas, and I mean, they're role playing a character, so they have different motivations and reasons for doing things.
Exactly. Yeah. Good to see you, baby Sailor. Yeah, and I think that's something that you don't necessarily fully realize until you experience that, I guess.
Absolutely.
Because I've run games where I've played the same game twice. Same module or something. There, I'm going to throw something together. Let's do that module like I did a while back with a different group. And they go through it completely differently, and they do completely different things. And that was when I really realized, I was like, I really can't predict anything what these people are going to do, because they are insane. And you can bet anything that your players are going to be insane to a certain degree. Everyone's players are a bit mad. That's just the nature of players, I guess. Not being able to predict. Have a few improvisational things on the tip of your tongue. So maybe even if you don't want to improvise, there's a way you can cheat improvisation. So you're sitting there thinking, oh God, Logan's so great at improvisation, but I've got nothing, my mind is a blank page, or when I'm put on the spot, there's nothing there. Here's a way you can kind of cheat that method in a way. It's just do it before, improvise beforehand. So think of some possibilities that they might go off the beaten track for. So, you say, okay, you're going off to Fandalen, here's the path, think of a few encounters that could be on the path if they got off the beaten track. And there's a few ways. Often modules have like a few tables of encounters that they might run into.
I have up on stream for chapter 3, there's actually a wilderness encounter table you can roll on.
There you go. So, and even if you're not playing your own module, you can make up one of these yourself. It's like maybe 1 to 2 is wolves, 3 to 4 it's a bear, 4 to 6 is 5 to 6 is like some wasp nest or something like that. Who knows?
DMG has some really helpful tables as well. Different locations, what kind of creatures are typically there, and you can roll on that as well. But I mean, you can substitute your own in too if you really want to introduce this sort of monster, or make up your own monster even. You can substitute that in, definitely.
Point on monsters, because a lot of people say, how do I scale an encounter for a level? I've got all these different ideas for, the common problem is that I've heard of. It's like the players are level 1, level 2, but you want to throw a Tarrasque at them, right? You want to throw something.
Of course
cool.
You do.
Or you want to throw like a beholder at them, or you want to throw something that's just the highest CR rating because it's fucking cool, and the rule of cool is the most important. Yeah, I think the one way that I get around that when I'm playing around low level is I reskin monsters. And so I'll take a low CR monster, let's say like a goblin, and I'll reskin him. I'll change him into let's say he's who knows, he could be anything, like a ninja zombie or something, off the top of my head. It could be that. And using the same stats as him, or you find a creature which is like similar to that creature which you're trying to create, and you just use those stats instead, because now it's an encounter which is leveled to the right level as your party. Okay, let's go with a cooler one. So I want to throw a beholder at the party. Well, maybe it's a weakened beholder, and you find a reason why it's injured, and it's not at its full capacity. And then you could find another monster at a low CR rating and just reskin it. Maybe throw a few of the kind of old attacks in, scale them to the right level, that sort of stuff. It's really quite easily done reskinning once you get a few ideas going.
Right.
You know?
Well, and then the other thing is too, even if you're just reskinning a monster to make it like something cooler that should normally be a lot more challenging, like the Beholder example, there can be a totally different way that they deal with it. It doesn't always have to be combat. Maybe it's injured and they find a way to communicate with it and they help it get better, and then it maybe becomes friends with the party, or at least doesn't outright murder them.
Exactly, yeah. And that's another thing, another kind of important pillar of DMing, I think, is have an ABC. So what does that mean? Well, if you have a problem, let's say the problem is the beholder, you could have 3 different options of getting around this problem. You could kill the problem, straight up combat. You could try and convince it that you're its friend. That could be another way of doing it. Or you could just try and run away from it, or sneak around it. So have these 3 different options. If you think of your favorite video games, there's usually a few ways of going around these problems, right? So in Skyrim or something like that, I usually use a Skyrim example because a lot of people played it. You could kill the guy, but you could sneak up behind him and get the item as well by pickpocketing him, something like that. Or you could convince him to give it to you by bribing him. So there's always different ways of doing things. Sleep spell, there's another one. So you guys, on the top of your head, can think of a bunch of different examples, and your players will probably think of more examples than you can as well.
Yeah, and to sort of touch on that, and in an earlier point you made about the players being crazy, I was once playing in a module that my friend was running, and there was this part where we went into a crypt and we had to solve a couple puzzles, which I love puzzles personally, as a DM and a player. Rather than a straightforward sort of this door's locked, sort of a puzzle to get through. It ended up being that the sarcophagus moved aside and there were stairs below when we solved the puzzle.
Nice.
So it was really cool, sort of satisfying. But as we went through, there was a part where there was a cauldron of all this stuff mixed in, and it said to mix it but to not drink any. Right. And the basic part of the story, the reason we were there, is there was suspicion of this woman that was buried there making Draco liches.
Nice.
Or turning into a dragon, or she might be a dragon. And so I honestly thought, and my character had a 14 intelligence, so he's moderately intelligent. He has enough intelligence to think outside the box. I honestly thought that if I drank that, I might become a dragon.
Right.
And so I did it. And no, it was just some serious fucking poison and I died, but it was great. They were all so confused and nobody could believe I did it, especially the DM. He thought never in a million years was anybody going to drink it. And so when I explained my reasoning and the thought process, they're like, "Oh wow, yeah, I can see how you sort of made that connection." But it was just one of those crazy player moments where they do something totally unexpected.
Yeah, out of the blue. And thanks so much to Linkenberg for following. Welcome to Benjamin, my friend. You're a gentleman and a scholar. I'll get to your question in a moment. We're going to have a Q&A session in just about 5 minutes here. We're going to open up the floor to do a bunch of questions for you guys to answer. So stick around. And what's up, Chest Diver? Good to see you, my friend. We're running through a few of the D&D basics for a new DM, basically. So let's do a little summary for what we were talking about before. So we talked about this idea of not preparing too much as a DM. So yeah, just I'm running a game for people new to D&D things. I thought I'd take a pick. Like I say, we've got a Q&A section in just a few minutes here. So if you have a question, feel free to ask it, and we'll do our best to answer. Between us, we've got something like 15 to 20 years of D&D experience, so we can try.
I think maybe even a little more than that, honestly.
Yeah, how long have you been playing?
Well, we started when my dad had the Red Box First Edition starter set, and I have characters from back then that they're older than I can remember. So,
Probably.
I started when I was like 5 or 6, I think. So, and I'm 26 now. So.
Perfect. Well, we've probably got a fair amount of experience between us then. But so yeah, a little quick wrap up here. The points that we made within the last hour, those were don't prep too much. Relax a little bit. Don't let the rules, the amount of rules, and the volume of content in these books scare you and make you, stop you from actually doing it. Because the most fun thing is actually playing, even if you're a little bit unprepared. Speaking of prepping, don't prep even more than you should. So don't read through the whole book necessarily unless you really want to. What I do is get a good feel for the overall of the book, and then prep intensely for like the first session, maybe the middle of the second session as well. What else do we say? This ABC idea, 3 ways to solve a problem. Everyone loves a freeway, right? So we were talking about how having different ways to solve the problems are fun and interesting for the players. We talked about improvisation, about this idea that scares a lot of people is how do I improvise, and how do I think of things off the top of my head when they go off the rails of the book or the module which I'm playing or the ideas which I've had. We suggested bringing up a few tables are always good fun. There's usually a few in the modules or in Dungeon Master Guide, or you can write your own as well. And of course, the other thing is just test yourself. You can do some Dungeon Masters tests. Okay, right here, right now in chat, I'll test you guys. So I am attempting to go to the Palace of the Ice Queen, but I've decided that I'm going to dive into below the waters of this frozen lake. What is behind this frozen lake? And you guys in chat can throw me some ideas, a little test like that. So you can throw yourself a test like that all the time. You can read through different modules and think, okay, so what if they go off the rails here? And you could improvise in your own space, in a safe space, without anything going too wrong. So there's a few ideas. Anything else I've missed, Logan, that we were talking about before, which you think is important?
I think probably the most important rule of D&D, I would say, is the goal is to have fun. Yeah. And I feel that as a DM, if your players are having fun, whether they've slaughtered everything or half of them died or all of them died, if they had fun, then you did your job right, regardless of what happened. Would be my advice. And definitely, you can definitely over prepare. There's already so many things as a DM you have to keep track of, either mentally or writing stuff down or a combination thereof. That if you're thinking ahead to, even halfway through this, what should happen this session, it's going to be easy to get mixed around and get confused with what's actually going on, because you've just got too much up in your mind. Yeah, I agree. I think, keep things simple for yourself. Don't overthink it too much. Make sure you have fun, and that your players are having fun as well, because if they're having fun, you're having fun, you're doing your job right. And that's all it's about, really, is having a good time with your friends. Do not fear the unknown. Dive boldly into it. And after a certain point, we've been doing some prep, just dive into it. And that's the biggest thing, I think, really, is I know so many people, either players, either dungeon masters, who just fascinate over the kind of the little things about worrying about not doing it right. And that is the silliest thing, because you're playing with friends, you're playing with people who will accept you, even if you mess up. And even if you do mess up, who actually cares? It's a fantasy game. We're all playing this in our minds. So don't worry about being shouted at by anyone or anyone thinking you're bad or anything like that. You can't be bad at Dungeons and Dragons. You can only be varying degrees of awesome. So the more you play, the more you do. And we've got some good replies in chat. Behind the frozen lake are several dead adventurers frozen in fear. If you survive the water, possibly an underwater cave, likely the area of enemies, and tunnels eventually lead back to entrance to the ice paths. Ice mermaids in the lake trying to lure you in. That sounds good. Under the ice is water. And underwater city of firemen, of course, probably the best one. But yeah, so those are some basic ways you can start DMing, some few tips and tricks and stuff like that from a few DMs. But let's open up the floor to some questions. Let's go into our Q&A section here, guys. So
any questions that you have, feel free to ask, and we will answer them, whether it be about new DMs. If you're a player, it doesn't matter if you're a DM or a player, absolutely anyone can ask a question. It could be a rules question, it could be a question about, your particular group or your friends and stuff like that. And of course, whilst we're on the hour, and whilst I'll let you guys get some questions and answer some more that were further up in chat, I'll give you guys a reminder. If you're new to the show, do hit that follow button and join us. It's the best way to keep up with all of our shows. We're here 5 nights a week, 10 shows a week now, 150 hours every single month, a 24-hour D&D stream happening this Saturday. So there's no reason, if you haven't followed already, not to hit that follow button. But I did want to answer Linkenberg's question.
Yep.
Yeah, further up, he asked us, how do you guys deal with character creation for a group's first game? I feel like it's really intimidating, and I'm scared. I'm going to do something wrong and end up with an OP player or something. I love to role-play the character creation somehow, but I still don't have a very good understanding of it. Only thoughts. So this is what we were talking about before, right? This is the kind of fear of doing something wrong, right? So Logan, what are your, suggestions or advice to Linkenberg for going into this character creation session and being a bit worried about having a really overpowered character? Maybe he's playing with some people who are more familiar with the game than he is.
Right.
Or maybe they'll just luck into doing something ridiculous. Yeah. What would your advice be?
So my advice with that is I like to do character creation sessions, being that I also stream D&D. They're actually streamed as well. I think some people do actually like watching that. Not everybody does. But I like to show sort of the origins of the characters, and I try and connect all the characters with that, or connect like a couple of the characters through events that have happened in the past or whatever. Get that sort of established there, so that the first session we're all ready to go and everybody sort of has an idea of what to expect. But as far as like worrying about like a character being too OP or anything, I personally like to allow people to roll for their scores if they want to. Right. But if you want to restrict them to the point buy or using the standard array, that's perfectly acceptable too. Some people prefer to do it that way because then they can't roll like a 3 on an ability. So if you want to restrict them in that way, nobody's going to feel like cheated or like ripped off or like, oh man, I can't roll. They're still going to get to play, right? So that's the important thing there. And I feel like there's not really, in 5th edition, there's not really anything like insanely OP. As far as like...
That was what I was going to say. I mean, in terms of 5th edition, it's a pretty balanced game. If you've played 3.5... 3 or
3.5, there's some crazy things that can happen starting at level 1, and that's not really a thing in 5th edition.
It's true.
Like, as cut and dry as that sounds, like that's...
I mean, I would hands up say 5th edition is a more balanced edition than they probably ever had.
Easily.
So don't worry about having an OP character. The other thing you can do, right, and here's an idea, is you can do with the standard array of values, right? So if you're on your like page 12 or so of your player's handbook, because around the beginning point, it has this thing where it can give you 15, 14, 13, 10, and 8 in the different scores, and you can, maybe there's 2 13s in there, and you can just give your characters these scores and just give them in the different ones. So they can't roll ridiculously high, and they're also not going to roll ridiculously low. So you can just give them the kind of standard array. The other thing you can do is you could just, if they were new players and you're running like a mod like this, I've got these pre-gens here. And you could just grab a pre-gen and give it to them, and it's fairly balanced. And so that is another option as well. But I really wouldn't worry about having too much to fear about that.
But yeah, and the best way, I think, to whether you're making a character yourself or you're helping your players make a character or doing it in a creation session, is to just have like sort of a step-by-step. First you do this, then you do this, then you do this, really broken down. And Linkenberg, both Will and I have done guides on like new player tips and making characters that can be helpful for both players and DMs.
Yeah, and there's a ton out there as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm sure we're not the only ones either.
Yeah, I mean, you can check out my YouTube channel, and Logan, if you want to drop your YouTube, feel free.
Sure.
or the video or whatever. But there's going to be YouTube. Yeah, there are plenty out there. So if you search character creation help, there's another way. If you're stuck reading through PHP and it's just not making sense, because I totally understand actually. I personally I'm not the best learner when it comes to just reading something. So I know that people, you get different learning styles and stuff like that, but some people just learn much better by simply watching something rather than reading through it. So I totally understand why you might want a visual guide to creating a character sheet there. So what else were I going to say? Chest Dive had a question before, which is a good one. How can you figure out what players would be interested in playing if they are new to role-playing games? I don't know what class or race, what kind of pacing or structure the game should have. Hack and slash, social intrigue, serious story, silly story, short introduction, long game. So how do you figure that out if they're new to role-playing games? I guess you could, first of all, it sounds stupid, but even if they haven't played, you've still got to ask them. Because they might have an idea, even if they're new. They might have a few ideas about the kind of game that they like. You could also ask them what kind of video games they like, maybe if they play video games, what kind of films they like, what kind of short stories they like. Give them some examples. So maybe they're big fans of Lord of the Rings, and they're like, yeah, we want a story like Lord of the Rings, something like that. Then dive into that and give them that. Similarly, if they're into short stories or like horror stuff like that, you can totally ask them what kind of stuff they're into. I think the standard sort of one which I've experienced is people tend to they might watch some streams, people tend to enjoy long overarching campaigns in a fantasy setting. Everyone loves Lord of the Rings, everyone likes stuff like Game of Thrones. And so if you're in a tight spot and you're backed up in the recording and not sure exactly what to do, I would go with something standard, go something with fairly vanilla and something simple. No one wants to D&D streams, nerds. But yeah, go with something fairly simple. And then from there, the other thing which I'd say is, even from session one, you get a pretty good feeling after session one about how that went, right? And then you take that feedback from the group. Did you like that? What did you like about it? What could we do differently? Did you like the combat? Would you rather have more of that or less of that? And then they can tell you, basically. So you don't have to know from the get-go. And then you can change your style on the go. DM's constantly doing that, because some sessions I'm running combat sessions, right? Well, this is the war and everything's going to be a combat session. And other times I run sessions which are full-on political intrigues, and I'll have a cast of 10 different NPCs, all of different character motivations and desires, and we'll role play out a scene in a court or something like that, or a grand feast. So there's all different styles of pacing that you can go with on the fly and stuff. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I think one of the best ways to sort of do that is do something that you're going to be passionate about and interested in. As Will said, generally, overarching long campaign in a general fantasy setting seems to be the most well responded to, what most people want to play. But there's all kinds of settings, and you can have multiple different genres within it. There can be one part of the story where it's mystery, and that might go for a couple 2-3 sessions. Maybe there's a bunch of murders in a town, or people are disappearing, or whatever, and that can then turn into a horror theme. It turns out there's vampires and werewolves, or ghosts and ghouls, zombies, and then it can turn into it can just build from there. But another good thing too, if you're playing with friends, you have usually a general idea. Now if you're playing with just anybody you could find, then obviously you won't know them as well. But I think one of the best things to do is, when you're putting together a group, try and put together a group of people that have similar interests and personalities. Now, obviously you can't get exact matches, but the better the group chemistry, the better the story's going to be. I
agree. The better people get along in real life, the better they'll get along in game. Yeah, it is a fact. Glad to hit festivals.
If you as a DM are very passionate and interested and involved in what you're presenting to the players, they're going to get that much more into it. If you're just sort of sitting there reading, okay, you walk into the room and there's a chest and a table and 2 chairs and a dead body, like, who's going to respond well to that? Like, if you're not actually into it, like...
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I had a great break, man. I'm feeling much more regenerated, rejuvenated, and a lot of energy to stream again. Funny thing about streaming every day is, like, sometimes you wake up and you're like, I have no energy to be interesting, but I feel much better after taking a break every 6 months or so. I have a monotone voice naturally. Well, tone is everything. I know a bunch of people have monotone voices, but are great DMs because tone. You can always have inflections and stuff like that, even if you're not doing voices. And even people with monotonous voices can sound excited, And reading box text dramatically as you can, that's a thing. And what was I going to say? I'm going to talk about something else for a moment. But I'll think of it in a second. But yeah, I think excitement just makes everyone else excited, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the more pauses and stuff like that. Yeah, the power of silence is something which isn't always garnered properly, I guess, because pauses are really powerful sometimes when you're reading.
Indeed, or if the occasional like smirk or smile.
Yeah.
For it may not even be related to the game at all, but if as a DM you let out even the slightest like smirk or smile, the players will be like, "Oh, what's gonna happen?"
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can mess them up in all sorts of ways.
You can definitely you can mess with their minds a little bit
for no reason. And
what
is that roll for? And you're like, don't worry. And it's nothing actually, but you can roll. That's
well, and that's another piece of general advice. If people are looking for like a secret door or passageway or trying to find something, it would be good to treat it as if there might be something there, even if there's actually nothing, because then you're not giving away that there's nothing there. So they searched and they didn't find anything. There might be something there. There might not be. But if you're like, oh, we don't need to roll, there's nothing there, then they already know that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I tried to do the classic razorly eyebrows. Yeah. There's all sorts of ways that DMs have been using to fuck their players throughout the. Throughout the ages, I'm sure, and I'm sure you guys can think of plenty more as well. I tend to use those in like horror games, particularly whenever I'm running.
Definitely.
I really want to play another Call of Cthulhu game, man. I was off topic for a second. I was reading The Shadow over Innsmouth by H.P. Lovecraft the other day, and that just inspired me again to do more Call of Cthulhu. There's so much good fiction there from Lovecraft that I need to get my teeth into. I actually got the time to read on holiday because I never get time to read. Like I have all these books, and I'm like, I brought the Prince of the Apocalypse, and I brought what's the other one? Horde of the Dragon Queen. I got Horde of the Dragon Queen and Prince of the Apocalypse, as well as the start set here. I might end up running through one of them. Have you played any of those, Logan?
Yeah, I've actually played all of them.
Oh, really? Are they good? Which one did you recommend?
So, Horde of the Dragon Queen is a very fine module. My biggest problem with it is, as a player, I felt very railroaded constantly. There was like one way to go to progress the story. There was like one thing you had to do before you could do anything else. And while I still was able to enjoy it, it wasn't as enjoyable as having more options of things to do. So out of those three, I would definitely recommend either Lost Mines or Prince of the Apocalypse above. But again, Horde of the Dragon Queen is still in and of itself a very fine module. It's just, it does have that sort of railroad feel of, this is happening, then this is happening. Railroad's like a beast,
Okay, maybe I'll run some Prince of the Apocalypse stuff at some point. Again, running my new group through Moldvay Basic Data. That sounds interesting. The other thing, which I am going to be doing with a secret project, secret exclusives, and I'm going to be doing, I've got this group of players together for a game for something, which is yet to be revealed. But we're going to be playing a one shot before we actually get into our actual campaign, right? And so that can sometimes, especially if players don't know each other, or if they don't know the game, or they're just trying to get into the idea of role playing, the idea of playing Dungeons and Dragons. Have a game which has no consequences, right? Because sometimes when you start a campaign, there's a big feeling. It's like, oh god, I've got to get this right. This is my character. If he dies, I'm going to be so sad. But if you play a one-shot beforehand, before you get into the campaign, throw in some pre-gens, give them to decide what they want to play, and then run them through this one-shot. You can get an idea of the rules and get an idea of playing with each other, and meeting one another as well if they haven't met before or played before, and you as well, to kind of get you into that rhythm of playing. Because sometimes I feel with a new campaign, and certainly with a new group, there's this awkward first session, right? Where everyone doesn't really know each other too well, or maybe you know each other well, but where everyone isn't quite in that groove. When you get in the groove of a group like you've been playing with for a while, and everyone just sits down and they kind of get into the flow of playing. And I'm sure because you play with a bunch of different groups, right? And you, with your, the group that you've played with for years, you sit down, everyone knows what's going on. But with a new group, it can be this kind of thing where it's like, the DM has to push a bit more to be like, okay, what do you guys do? What do you guys do? What are you guys doing?
I've experienced that, not so much with my my groups on Twitch, but I have a family group with a couple of their friends as well that I started. And I was actually DMing locally for Adventurers League, which can be a good way to get into D&D if you're looking for something. If your local shop has it, it's pretty nice. They do have a different set of rules you have to go by for characters and stuff.
Yes,
which they'll definitely help you out with if you do. But it's just sort of anybody who shows up can play. So it's not even the same group every time necessarily. And so there's definitely that awkwardness of nobody really knowing what to do, and I'm sitting there as the DM sort of just kind of like, okay guys, what do you do? And one of the best things that you can do for that is, specifically if there's one or two people who are really, really quiet, I'll call on them and specifically ask, okay, let's say their character name's Kellen. Remember to use character names, not real names, as much as you can. Kellen, what are you doing? Or Kellen, you see there's the orc in the room that looks angry to see you guys there. What do you do? Try and get, especially if they're not talking as much or not doing as much, try and get them involved more, get them playing. Once that ice has sort of been broken, the initial awkwardness of a new thing, new people, it sort of fades away. People will really sort of grow into it a little bit more.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think it's a good point, yeah. Also, thanks to Noof Games, the host. How's it going, Noof? Yeah, I think you definitely should be a writer, by the way. So, Chest Diver asks, what edition over the years have you found to be good introductions to the game? Played a ton of 3.5, never playing that again. Played a bunch of 4th edition, I would play that again, but no one wants to play it with me. And 5th edition is the one I played most of, probably. And for me, 5th edition is the best edition to introduce new players to, and probably easily my favorite edition all around. So if you're getting new players in, 5th edition is the easiest to get them involved with, to understand the principles of both role-playing and the game mechanic as well, I think. Because 4th edition is great for combat stuff, but not so good in the RP side of things. So I think
I agree with that 100%. 5th edition. I haven't played every edition. I've played basic 1st edition with the Red Box starter set. I've played some 3.5, some Pathfinder. I didn't play 4E, and I've played 5th. And 5th is by far and above my favorite edition out of those. And going back to the starter set, Lost Mines of Phandelver, it's very well written. It's a very good intro adventure. You can get it, like Will said, it's $20. You can find it even less sometimes online. I think I got mine on Amazon for $14 maybe back in the day. Yeah. When I think it might have even been costing a little more when it was brand new. So, it's definitely easily